Welcome to Conversations with Women Who Lead, honest conversations about business, leadership, and what really shapes how women lead. I'm Anne Marie McHenry, business coach, consultant, creator, and a therapist for the past 2 decades. On this podcast, I sit down with women to talk about their businesses and their unique areas of expertise, as well as how their upbringing, background, and the social conditioning they've experienced have shaped the way they lead. We explore what they've had to learn and unlearn along the way. I'll also be sharing my own journey of founding and selling a business and the very real trials, lessons, and reinvention involved in building my next chapter, Rose and Stone. This is a space for thoughtful leadership, honest conversation, and women redefining success on their own terms. I'm so happy you're here. Thanks for joining us on Conversations with Women Who Lead. Today's guest is Dr. Betsy Chung. She's a licensed clinical psychologist in private practice, and she specializes in helping clients form healthy relationships with themselves and others. She's the author of Couples Skills Workbook, which is designed to help couples develop emotional intimacy through deep understanding of each other and good communication. Dr. Chung is also co-owner of a large private group practice in Huntington Beach, California, where she helps connect clients to quality therapists. Okay, so let's start there. So tell me about the work that you're doing. You're in 2 different businesses that require different things of you.
Yes, so I've been in my own private practice now for a little over 10 years, and I've just kind of been doing my own thing. And my other business is a group practice, Flow Wellness Hub. And what's interesting about, Flow Wellness Hub, my history with Flow Wellness Hub is I actually got my start with my own private practice because of this group practice. And so to give like a little history, I actually used to work for Flow Wellness. We called it, we changed the name to Flow Wellness recently, but it was always called Associated Therapist. And this is actually a 40-year-old company. So I was working there as an administrative assistant before I graduated college. And then I left to graduate school, came back as a therapist. And then after I started my own private practice, came back then as an owner. And so to be honest, even though these 2 practices, these 2 businesses that I have are separate, I couldn't have opened my own private practice without having worked for associated therapists prior. That's where I learned everything that I needed to know about the therapy practice. And so by the time I opened my own private practice, everything was pretty seamless, and it almost felt like, just like a very easy transition for me. And so, after, many years of doing my own private practice, I was offered the opportunity to take over associated therapists. That's where my partner, who was the office manager, we kind of came and, talked about the possibility of working together. We took some time to get to know each other, talk about our visions for the practice. That's been, I guess, 4 years almost now that we've been doing this together.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
A huge opportunity.
Oh my God. It was something that we could not pass up, the opportunity that came to us. It hasn't been easy though. I think, in a way, we kind of inherited this business because my partner Sharissa and I, we both worked for the company for many, many years, and we became very close to the owners. And so, when the opportunity came up, we were just like, oh my God, this is perfect. But at the same time, these past 4 years has not been easy. Anywhere from maintaining the business to growing the business, and then finally getting ourselves to a place where we actually feel like we are profitable. It took so much, because this is also a huge private practice, and we've got I think at the time when we took over, we probably had about 20-25 clinicians and a handful of medication providers. And now I think we have 3 medication providers and anywhere from 35 to 40 clinicians. And so it's always been a big practice. And, part of what made it difficult is that we had all of these therapists that had been there for 20, 30 years. And so for me to come in and change things, change the name, change, so many ways we were doing stuff, these are just some of the the I guess like struggles that nobody really sees and talks about, right?
Right. I mean, I would love to know about your journey from you started as an admin assistant with this already established group practice,
Mm-hmm.
got your degree, got your license, came back and worked as a clinician in that group, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually were offered an opportunity to own the group.
Correct.
Can you say more about, and whatever you're comfortable sharing, but did you have to purchase the group, or were they just wanting to offload it onto new owners? How was that decision made to ask you, and what did that contract look like? And then how did you decide to take the opportunity and do this?
Yeah. So what happened was that I had lost contact with the group for multiple years already. I was in my own private practice. And I guess like even though in the back of my mind, like I developed a personal relationship with the owners. And so in the back of my mind, I was always thinking about them. And but at the same time, never really thought that I had plans to turn back or anything. And then one day, out of the blue, I got an email, like a group email from the group practice that was sent out to all the therapists and the previous therapists, that one of the owners, his wife, had passed away. So of course, I reached out to offer my condolences, and I spoke with the owner, Dr. Julio Guerra, and just out of nowhere, he's just like, "Hey, I have a question. Like, have you ever thought about owning this practice?" And I was like, I won't say that it's never crossed my mind before in the past, but like nothing that I ever took seriously. And so he presented the idea to me, and I was like, "Give me a week to think about this." A week later, I reached out to him, to let him know that, I did have interest and I wanted to move forward in learning more about this. And he didn't respond. And several days later, I received another email from the practice that said that he had passed away, which was a really, really crazy thing because both him and his wife, like they were just like very integral parts of this practice, and they had both passed away within a month of each other. And who was left was their best friend, Ken, who he was still there serving as an administrative, I guess like the lead administrator. And so I talked to him and told him, the discussion that Julio and I had, and then told him I couldn't do it alone, and is the office manager still going to stick around? And he was like, "No, she's actually on her way out." So of course I, reached out to her. I was like, "I know that you were probably in transition career wise, but is this something that you'd be open to, I guess exploring with me?" And I didn't know this before, but I guess that she had tried to take over the company prior with somebody else, and it didn't work out. I think they tried for like 6 months or something. It didn't work out. And so it was interesting because it just like felt like, I don't know, like it just felt like it all like came together and made sense when we decided to talk to each other. Because, obviously the owners, like they kind of saw something in me, saw something in her, and we just happened to connect. And so we were kind of thinking about like, okay, like what's going to happen. And so what we were offered was that, because we had such a close relationship with the administrator, Ken, who was, one of the original founders, he basically allowed us to, I guess, like come into the business with everything still intact. And we would just basically slowly pay him out. So luckily we didn't have to come in with any of our own capital, but we, obviously like have a loan now that we have to pay off to him. And so a lot of those finances, were so difficult because this is also like pretty soon post-pandemic. And our practice previously thrived on in-person sessions. We offered office space for therapists. And after the pandemic, even though the therapy practice did kind of explode, like nobody wanted to do in-person sessions anymore. And so there was a lot of juggling that we had to do, a lot of like changes we had to make in terms of like, how were we going to bring in therapists? How were we going to make this whole thing work especially with some clinicians and psychiatrists leaving us because the old leadership had left.
Yeah.
And they weren't sure what was going to happen with us. So they're just like, yeah, we're going to go do our own thing. So it was really, really tough for a while.
Yeah.
And having a great partner that, my strengths are her weakness and her strengths are my weakness. Our commitment to working together as a team, that's really helped us, get to where we are today. So great.
Yeah. Amazing. Congratulations again. There's so much there in what you just said. That transition from previous leadership to brand new leadership, even though you had been in the company previously, the office manager had been there but was on her way out, and then the whole team having to accept or at least adopt you as the new leaders. What was that like for you?
That was so, so hard. I can still remember, like when we first took over, I think it was already the end of the year. And so one of our first, I guess, like projects as new owners was to throw the annual Christmas party. And so we, of course, like wanted to, make it special, as kind of like our takeover, but then also really wanting to honor the previous owners because they had passed away that year. And so we had invited their son and already at that point, there was already a lot of people transitioning out. So our psychiatrist, who was our biggest source of income, she decided to leave the practice because of, she didn't say it was because of us, but at the same time, like it was hard for us to like feel like, is it because you don't trust our leadership just yet, which was completely understandable.
Right.
So that was like a really big hit to what we were coming into. And then as we started to want to make certain changes, so like for me in my own private practice, I use a electronic health record system, simple practice that worked very, very well for me. And so I knew that this practice, like still very old systems, and it took everybody like so long. Like we would basically like, when therapists would see clients, they would write it in a journal, we would enter it, and then we would manually send in the claims. And when the claims came in, we would manually have to like record it on the computer. So if you can imagine all the therapists that we had and all the clients that they had, it was so, so time consuming. And a lot of, we had, it was just a lot of work. And so my first orders of business was to introduce an EHR system so that we can kind of streamline everything. But what that also meant is that all of these therapists were going to have to learn a new system. And even though I knew that this was going to streamline everything and make things so much more efficient for us, we were going to have to, win over all of these existing therapists that have been working with us for like 20, 30 years. And we ended up, experiencing I wouldn't say a lot of pushback. Like we probably had like, 10% of our therapists that weren't very happy with the situation, but was also very stressful because like, even though it was just a small number of them, like as new owners coming in, it was really hard to know, like, are we doing the right thing? Like, because this is such a huge change. Not only are our staff doing things differently, therapists need to learn to do things differently, and clients need to learn to use a new system. So I would say that those months of transition and figuring out how are we going to teach these therapists how to use this new system in the most efficient way possible, figure out all the kinks. Like there were certain processes that obviously didn't translate in the new system. So needing to come up with all the new systems and procedures, that was a lot. We had one of our old, like, I guess most senior therapists. She basically just quit on us one day and she was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe you guys expect me to learn this new system. And, I'm just going to retire. And we took that really hard because we really valued this therapist. And so it was hard, but I think this is all kind of part of that I don't know, teamwork and that unity that my partner and I have, like looking back, we're able to say, oh my God, that's everything that we went through together and we're successfully able to get past. And it's definitely a really good sign for us that, you know, we were good partners.
Totally. Totally. Having somebody to go through all that change with and be leading people through that change, and also the fact that the two of you worked so well together through all of that and have come out the other side. I'm sure there's still more stuff going on. There always is in business, right? But absolutely, that is a huge testament to your working, very functional working relationship as co-owners.
I saw it like a marriage almost.
Which is your specialty.
Yeah, like I think that we resolved, like I approached a lot of our, I guess, like differing perceptions and, you know, like working through of issues in the same way that I would in my marriage, where it's like, hey, we got to talk about this. Let me hear your perspective. You know, okay, like, you know, you're going to win some and I'm going to win some. And, you know, sometimes it's going to have to compromise on certain things. Sometimes you're going to have to trust me. Sometimes I'm going to have to trust you. So yeah, it's done well for us.
Yeah. And I know relationships are your specialty, and I'm curious, how have you brought your expertise in knowing relationships so well into leading your team as well? So obviously with your co-owner, but leading your team, what have you noticed that you've drawn from or utilized?
I mean, pretty much everything, but I think that a really huge piece of it is just listening, like being curious. So, again, like my partner and I, we are so different in so many different areas. You know, a majority of the time we agree on a lot of things, but then in the areas that we don't agree in, you know, like we've really had to kind of like sit down and talk about these things. And I think that something that was very uncomfortable, also that I had to hold myself accountable to, was that in the end of the day, you know, even though I say that this is like a marriage, it's not like a marriage in a sense where it's like with my husband, I can sometimes be unfiltered with him, right? I can be emotional with him. And, you know, sometimes like, you know, let myself, you know, I guess like fall apart and, you know, say certain things that I might not say in a different social relationship or in a professional relationship. And so I think that what was challenging, but also I think really, you know, rewarding was being able to hold myself accountable to speak up about things I'm comfortable about. But also like being able to manage like, okay, how am I going to bring this up? I can't just like, you know, fall apart and, you know, and approach her in this particular way that I would with my husband, but I do need to talk about this if it's affecting me. And there's also been times where, you know, I've made certain mistakes where I'm just like, okay, I think I kind of, you know, like I kind of catastrophized in that situation, and I probably approached that situation a little, you know, like too soon without thinking about it. And so what I would do is, you know, then come back and acknowledge that, like, hey, you know, my bad. Like I probably should have talked about this first. So like, for example, like, I think, you know, I'm so used to doing things on my own. I've always grown up to be very independent and self-sufficient. And so when I opened my own private practice, my solo practice, when I needed to set up my office, like all I did was I just hopped on OfferUp and Facebook Marketplace, looked for, you know, like good furniture. And I would just, you know, schedule to my pickups and then have a particular day where I just go around, schedule everything, and then go drop it off at the office. And within the first, I think like 3 months of us taking over, we had talked about, you know, kind of renovating some of the offices or making it nicer. So I did the same thing. I went on OfferUp and I found like 3 couches. And I like texted her, I was like, hey, do you like this one? Do you like this one? Like, well, I'm going to go pick it up and I'm going to drop it off. And I realized I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like, I just totally went and changed the furniture in these offices that, yes, we had talked about not liking the furniture, but that doesn't mean that I get to go and do whatever I want. Like, this is a
Right.
partnership.
Right.
So I think that, yeah, like needing to continue to hold myself accountable to that and reminding myself, like, okay, this is a partnership. Like, this is, not your solo practice. And on top of that, just also recognizing, like, I left for a while. Sharissa's been there for the past 10 years as office manager. So also being able to recognize that, even though we are coming in now as co-owners, like, I also had to respect her territory because she's been here, consistently for a long time. So I think, being able to kind of like trust her that, like, she has better instincts than me in some areas. So let's trust her in that area. And then if I feel really strongly about something, then I can speak up for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of the things that, I see myself kind of bringing in terms of like what works with relationships.
Yeah. And that makes so much sense. And of course, she's not going to respond the way that your husband does. And there are things that you really can't say to your business partner that maybe you would say to your husband. But those skills of like, yes, we need to talk about it. And if something's really bothering you, bring it up. Does it matter to you that much? Maybe not. Don't worry about it. Let them take the lead. But really like reading the room and practicing restraint, but also like knowing when to step forward. Those are definitely skills that we practice in our relationships. And I know as a couples therapist, you're working with clients and couples to establish and hone. There is definitely something to be said for being the sole owner of a business and making all of the decisions, even though that's very overwhelming and can be scary and you question yourself. But then when you have a partner, you have another person to consider, right? You have their support, but it's like another human who you have to consider all of their ideas and emotions and strategize with them.
Right. And their personal lives too, right?
Gosh,
I think
yes.
like I had a baby in, the past year. And so what that meant is that she really had to work with, really huge shifts in my availability. And then she suffered a very, tragic thing in her family this past year. And so it was, I felt like, okay, now it's kind of time for me to try to step up in different ways. And so, I think that it's kind of like everything else in the world, like, there are positives and then there are things that that are challenging. I think that the positives is like, there have been times where like, I would feel so overwhelmed with certain things and, being able to kind of talk to her and see her perspective or her solutions. So for example, like we're kind of like talking about needing to, there was a particular client who really was requesting something from us. And we, as business owners, like we, I guess like legally needed to find a solution for this client. And so, when I was like talking to Sharissa, I was like, yeah, but like the client's not going to be happy with that. She's like, it's a solution. They don't have to be happy about it. I was just like, oh my God, thank you. I would have never thought of that myself. Yeah. So I really appreciate, all of that she brings to the table that really helps kind of like relieve me of needing to be the sole decision maker. But then at the same time, again, like there are going to be times where I'm just like, it's like, no, but I feel really strongly about this, but I have to respect and honor where she's at, and she might not have the capacity to do the thing that I want to do right now. So for instance, like I'm really focused on growth, and because of what she's going through, she just didn't have the capacity to do it. And so for me, I'm just like, even though it felt like a great opportunity, the timing isn't right because I need my partner to be there with me when we're doing this. So yeah, it's kind of like just this balance that we always have to strike.
Yeah, well, and I think it's a really important point too, that like you're a human, you have a personal life, things will come up for both of you as they do for your team and everyone else in the world. But when you're running a business and responsible for so much, and also you've taken it over and you're trying to like streamline and simplify and create more efficiency in the business and then grow it, you still have to be mindful of like the human that you're running it with, because we can't do everything all the time. And you just had a baby, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's been so wonderful having my baby, but that's also one of those things too, is that I in the beginning, I thought that I was going to be able to do two things at once. So, like when she takes naps, I'm going to be able to do a little bit of work. Or when, she's just kind of like doing her little independent play, I'll be able to do some work. And what I'm realizing is that Tuesdays are usually my days off. I'm realizing I'm just like, the work that I'm able to do even during her naps is really it's not much. And so what I've been able to do now is on Tuesdays, like, I just take the whole day off. I have some associates where I do supervision, but aside from that, like, the whole day belongs to her, and I don't try to stress so much about I guess, like, growing the business. I think that that's one of the things I appreciate about my partner as well, is that even though we are both really invested in growing, we're also very respectful of each other's private lives. And, she's not sitting there saying like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you not, doing that marketing thing that we talked about? Like, she trusts that I'm doing whatever I can. And then I also trust that she's doing whatever she can. So being able to kind of like sometimes tolerate certain plateaus, I think has been part of, what's made our partnership, so strong.
It makes me wonder if working with a female co-owner like supplements that understanding or flexibility in that way. I mean, I don't know if you know it differently. Have you ever owned a business with a man? But I don't know. I've never owned a business with another person. It's only been me. But do you have any thoughts there?
So I've never owned another business with another man, but I've definitely worked under other male psychologists before. And, I will say that it is a little bit different. This isn't to say that they don't care about, what's going on in your lives, but I do think that, working with a woman means that we are going to be a lot more, I guess, like curious and emotionally supportive of each other. We're also, I guess, like, and it doesn't always mean that it's a good thing too, right? Because like we also care a lot about the people that work for us. So for example, like we might sometimes like keep a staff member for a lot longer than we should because we know what's going on in their personal lives. So that happened to us a couple of years ago where we're just like, oh my God, like no matter how much we invested in this person, like as an ethical practice, like we were kind of realizing that like, okay, we can't have this person on that anymore. So we kind of started to shrink their jobs like more and more until to a point where I'm just like, I don't think we're getting our return on investment here. And so it took us several months to make that decision because we knew that this person was struggling. And so on the one hand, I think it's great that we're able to nurture a very comfortable and caring environment where everybody loves going to work. Everybody gets along very well, works together very well. But at the same time, I think that sometimes, our compassion and our empathy can get in the way and, cause us to, I guess, take longer to make certain decisions than we should.
Yep. I completely understand. I think that's a super strength of women, or at least if we're conditioned in a way to like nurture others, we are really hopefully enjoying the people that are on our team and that we hire, and also having a lot of compassion for when things get difficult for them. But that can really interfere with business. And I think it's so hard to have a hard conversation with someone who is doing their best given what they have in the moment and still have to say, this isn't working out. So yeah, I completely understand that. And I think if I had a female partner as a business owner, that would probably amplify that type of problem, and then you have to get really clear about your vision and your values and the structure and what the expectations are of each member on your team, and do the hard things and not be so nice.
Yeah. I think that, it's actually been even harder for my partner because like she's the one that's like in the front lines. And so she sees all of these employees on a daily basis versus for me, I'm there like once or twice a week because I'm doing a lot of the background stuff. And so even that in itself was also, something that she and I had to work through, where I'm just like, okay, like I might be ready a lot faster than her because she actually has a personal relationship. So, I mean, it just kind of goes to show how like every single decision is something that requires, very, I guess, like sensitive navigation and, and just a lot of respect for each other and, trusting that everybody's doing their best. And being able to just kind of like find that balance between like moving forward, but also respecting each other's pace.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's such an important difference, but like highlight of co-owning a business is you're not in it alone. Like, yes, you have to have consideration and respect for the other person's opinions and ideas, but you also share the burden with them of all of this responsibility and all of the decisions. So yeah, I mean, it's really awesome to hear you talk about co-owning this business because, and not with like your actual husband, with like a person that you were sort of like thrust into this with and had to develop this relationship and kind of hope that it worked out. It sounds like a beautiful partnership, and it's just so different than doing it on your own, which you have that perspective too in your private practice. So like, what a well-rounded human to be talking to about business right now, Betsy.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I think, I don't know, it's weird. Like people always think that I'm so weird well, I guess like some people would get it, but like for me, business, it's kind of like a game. And as stressful as it can be, I see every challenge like, a video game obstacle or a video game boss where it's like, okay, how do I get us through this? And how do I pass this level in order to get to the next step? And, of course, we don't pass levels quite as fast in real life, but I think that one thing I've really appreciated so much about business in general, and the truth is that I think that this group practice is where I truly envisioned myself when I thought about being a business owner, because yes, I have been in my own business for quite some time already, but that always didn't feel like the kind of business that I envisioned. I grew up, with two business owners. My parents both owned their own business. And so I watched them, grow, and they were both immigrants. And so they literally went from like zero to being able to, own a home and raise like five healthy and well-rounded children who are able to kind of take care of ourselves. And so I really admired that. And I think that for me, I wanted the same thing. Like I envisioned myself like having meetings with people and making things happen. And so that didn't happen so much in my private practice, but in the group practice, like I realized like literally just a couple weeks ago, I was just like, I think I was having like meeting after meeting, and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm doing what I envisioned that I wanted to do. And so again, like, we're not at a place where we're just like a thriving business just yet. But I'm excited to see like where it can go and the little challenges that we're going to have to continue to take and push through in order to get to those rewards that we're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're absolutely on the right trajectory. And I love that you're looking at everything that comes up as like a challenge or it's like a problem to solve that's really interesting and kind of fun.
Yeah.
Because growing a business, it really stretches you, right? Like it's very different than just being a solo business owner. You're required to grow and to get really creative and to learn and to fail and then to get back up and do it again. It requires a lot of a person, but it's exciting if you want to grow in those ways, right?
Yes, it's very exciting. And I think what's different about having, having to work with somebody and, and having like other people, I guess is that there are people who are kind of like depending on you. And so there's slightly more, I guess, like motivation for me to push myself, to, I guess, like maybe work a little bit faster, or, take more risks than I normally would, but also, be more careful with other risks, right?
Yeah, right.
Because we don't want to jeopardize, any kind of
Totally.
situation for anybody. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that it's definitely been a fun journey up until this point, as stressful as it is.
Yeah. Yes. What would you say is one of your like core learnings from being a business owner of this larger practice? How have you watched yourself evolve?
I think, it kind of goes back to just being able to like trust that other people are able to contribute in their ways, and not feeling like it's entirely my job or up to me to make sure that, that everything is running smoothly. I think something that I also, like find myself doing a lot is I do tend to take too much responsibility, for certain things. And so I think, owning a bigger practice like this, but also being able to have a partner, has shown me that, yeah, like that's the purpose of having a partner, is like, it's somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of, and I don't have to be alone. And so, like, owning this practice, has really shown me that, I guess relationships are useful. Very, very useful.
Right. Well, I think
and important.
Yes, but you're bringing up such a very poignant point for me, which is the over-functioning part and the taking so much responsibility and feeling like you have to do everything. And I don't think that's uncommon in business owners, but there's a learning curve there of I can't do it all, and it's not entirely up to me, and I need to not take on all the responsibility. There's plenty of other people around here who want to do their jobs, and they can.
Right. Yeah, like one of the things that I think I also discovered, and this is not to say that people in my life haven't been reliable, but my partner, Charissa, she is literally hands down the most reliable and dependable person ever. Like I've never experienced like this level of trust before, where like literally she and I will have a conversation about something, and I'll mention something small, and then the next time I look, like I don't even have to remind her, like it's been done. Like, so we'll talk about like, oh yeah, we should probably talk to this person about this. And it just kind of comes up as, just a general like conversation. And then, next thing you know, like, oh yeah, I talked to this person already. And like, this is the progress of that. I was just like, oh, wow. And so it's funny because like in my own practice with clients, I talk so much about like being able to value relationships. And the truth is that a lot of my work with clients also comes from like my own personal upbringing and things that I've learned along the way about relationships too. I'm one of those overfunctioners, and I'm one of those overly self-sufficient, overly dependent people. And I don't know how to rely on people. And so the funny thing is that like there probably have been so many dependable people in my life, but I just never gave them the opportunity to be dependable, because I just go through it on my own.
Yes.
So I think that's something that like Charissa has really shown me, is that like I can totally depend on her, and I don't have to be the person to make like a to-do list of 100% of the things of our business, because this is her area and this is my area. And once in a while we'll kind of convene and, talk about like what we're doing. But aside from that, like, I trust her to do her thing. She trusts me to do my thing.
So awesome. Okay, so what you're bringing up for me is something that I used to talk to my clinic manager about, which was like when we were hiring and considering people for different roles, like we love perfectionists. We want you to be a perfectionist because we know they're going to get it done and they're going to do it very well. And that's so cringy. but it's true. Like I also could tell like you're very good at business because when I reached out to you, you got back right away. You filled out the paperwork right away. We're scheduling right away. Like you're getting it done, right? And like not everyone operates at that level. And so I'm curious your thoughts on like perfectionism in business and how really useful it is if you want to do it well, but where do we
Mhm.
draw the line? And have you found that line?
You know, to be honest, I think that I have, I think that emotionally I still need to catch up, but I think I have kind of found that line. So
Mm-hmm.
again, like, with me having my baby and, with Sharissa having her own family, things to take care of, I think that, us making the space for us to kind of like, I guess, like deal with all of this like work life stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, that has been us drawing the line with the perfectionism,
Yeah.
because I think that, if I continue to push ourselves to be perfectionists, I would be frustrated at her for having to, go handle her stuff. And then I would also be upset at myself
Mm-hmm.
for, or maybe even my baby for not being able to, complete all the tasks that I'm supposed to complete within a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, that even though our practice isn't growing as quickly as, maybe other practices could, like one of the things our administrator Ken, so Ken, like I said, like he was our, one of the original founders, and actually over a year ago, he retired.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that he would kind of complain about, for me and Sharissa, was like, you guys work at a snail's pace.
Oh.
And so, yeah, like he's like, everything that you guys say that you're going to do, like you guys eventually achieve, but it takes you guys like a year to do it. And, the truth is that like, yes, that is true. Like our growth has been very, very slow.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's because we've got so much going on. Like Sharissa and I, we didn't plan for this. Like this literally got sprung on us, and we made the decision, within like, I think like a month of having the opportunity presented to us. And we're just like, all right, like, I mean, it's now or never. So let's just go ahead and do it. But we also kind of came in with a caveat. Like we both understood that we both had lives. She understood that I, had my own private practice to run. And at the same time, I understood that she wanted to go somewhere else, and she was kind of tired of this work. And so I think that we both kind of came in knowing that like, okay, this isn't going to be perfect, and we're not going to be successful overnight. And so I think that that's kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say sacrifice, because I don't see it as a sacrifice. If anything, I see it as like, we've kind of created this situation where, we're able to run this business and still work on the growth, but at the same time, still tend to our private lives in the way that we want to. And, and understand that like, we're not going to see the numbers that we want to see as quickly as other people do. It might take us some time to decide, like, for example, like right now, what we're trying to figure out is like, are we going to hire somebody to do our SEO, or am I going to learn how to do the SEO? Yeah. And, and it's taken us this long to kind of figure out like, okay, like, we got to do something different. But again, like, we're okay with it. Right. Our personal lives are also very important to us. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a helpful reframe. Like you are going to have life that comes up, so we can't be perfect and just on and running full speed all the time. And you're learning as you go. So you can't know what you don't know yet. And in that sense, we can't be perfect. But I think the part of just like being human, like that does reduce the like compulsion to be so perfect. Like we have lives, things happen. It's okay. Go do your thing. It'll be fine. Like there has to be that like flexibility and freedom to just be a person. So I appreciate you speaking to that. Keeping an eye on time. Do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. What, in terms of leadership, what do you think has changed about you personally since you have stepped into this very big leadership role and really management role of all these people that you hadn't
Mhm.
quite, you hadn't managed before, right? But what has changed for you personally?
I love this question because it's so personal to me. And I'm looking at this from the perspective not even just as a co-owner of a group practice and a leader of a staff, but even as a therapist. And what I'm thinking about is I remember that pre-pandemic, I thought that I was a pretty good therapist. Like I had high retention rates with my clients, and and a lot of my clients would leave me good reviews and say they benefited from therapy. So it made me feel good, but at the same time, something always felt like it was missing. I was like, it always didn't feel like I was doing therapy. So during the pandemic, on tape when I went running, and I started to listen to more like Carl Rogers and a lot more like the humanistic therapists that I really admired. And I realized the difference between how they were doing therapy and how I was doing therapy was like they were not guiding or directing their clients. And so I thought about it, just like, oh my God, like I've been doing therapy the way that I was raised, like where I'm this authority, this who knows all. And I'm like telling these clients, like what's good and what's not and what direction to go. And, while it was, undoubtedly beneficial to a lot of my clients, I realized that that's not therapy and that's not how I wanted to do therapy. And so what I did is I started to listen to more books, and I started to shift the way that I was doing therapy. And it was so hard because when you're learning something new, it's almost like learning how to walk from crawling, right? So you're going to mess up, you're not going to do well. And so that was a really hard push. I think it would take me it took me about a year to finally get comfortable with the new, the new way I was doing therapy. And I realized that like that completely changed how I saw leadership, how I saw support. It wasn't about direction or instruction. It was about listening and trusting, and trusting that when I work with my clients, if I ask the right questions, that they would be able to come up with solutions that made sense for them, even though I might not have seen that solution from the start. And in this way, I think leading, I guess like being part of a leadership team in this group practice, I think in the same way I'm kind of like trying to bring that in as well, is like really trying to listen and trust that like I'm not in the office on a daily basis to know what's going on. So I to listen to the girls, and we call them the girls, like, because most of the time our front desk staff have been like, girls. And so it was always the girls. But anyhow, like being able to trust that like they're in the thick of things. And I might want them to do things a certain way and think that this way of doing things is right, especially having been one of the girls in the past. But things have changed, and and I need to kind of trust that, yeah, like they know how they know best how to do things their way. So that might look like certain processes. Like when I was there, this is the way I did it, but maybe that's not how things are anymore at the office. Maybe that's not how they learn and how they process things. And so if I want to be a good leader, I have to learn how to foster that and trust that everybody kind of has their own strengths, and I need to work with everybody's strengths.
Yeah. There's so much there in what you just said, especially therapist to therapist. I can relate so much to For me, it was feeling like I needed to be really effective and really useful in a therapy session, which includes providing a lot of education, providing direction, redirection, support, like do this, not that, try this, not like that, and then really shifting. I'm sort of in a parallel process with what you've been describing of shifting into just allowing the space to believe that people have their own answers, which I think we say as therapists all the time, like our clients have the answers, but do we give them that space? Not always, right? So trusting, yes, that if you ask the question and allow them to work through it, that they do know what's in their best interest. And that applies to your team too, and like your admin team might do things better than you if you let them. Right?
Exactly.
So that trust is really important. But there is, I really relate to like having this urge to want to like fix and do. And it's probably back to the overfunctioning and perfectionism and let me like figure it out for you because I know that I'm good at this, right? But that's not our place to really get into other people's lives and service in that way.
Right.
So I love that answer. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite part of growing with this business?
I think that, gosh, there's so much that I love, but I think my favorite part is like being able to see that the things that my partner and I talked about achieving in the beginning are slowly coming to fruition, even though it's been slow. Like I think I've just been so amazed at, I guess, like our follow through, at like, how well we've just kind of been able to like work together, whenever somebody, has the motivation to push forward in something, like we are able to kind of support each other in those ways. So I think that like, yeah, when we look back, if you were to look at like we probably actually have a physical list, but when we first started, having meetings and talking about where we wanted to see the company going, I think that we've achieved a lot of it. And I don't know, I think that it makes me feel so proud of us, and it reinforces how great of a partnership this is. And it makes me excited about what we're able to achieve together, because again, like, it doesn't mean that, I'm sitting here saying like, oh, we are like this thriving business, because I know tons of group practices that, near us that are, making 100 times more money than us probably. But that's not really, what I'm I guess like most looking forward to. I think I'm most looking forward to just the growth and and just like excitement of like, what can this very strong partnership do? Like, what are we capable of achieving?
Yeah, which is such an exciting question to ask. The sky's the limit, right? And you'll get there when you get there. But to actually now have tangible evidence of where you started and what your goals were, and now you're starting to see those come to fruition. I agree. Like, be so proud of yourself and your partner. Like, shout it from the rooftops. It's amazing to have that experience of seeing it like come full circle.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree. Thank you.
I think this will be my last question. What would you want our listeners to know or to take away from your experience developing into the leader that you've become?
I think that something that a lot of people need to learn how to, I guess, like overcome if they want to become a leader or a business owner, is you need to learn how to be comfortable with, I guess, the uncomfortable, right? Like, when you first open a business, I think like the first couple months, or even just like the planning stage, it's so much fun because you're just like, oh, okay, like I want to do this, I want to do that, at that point, like these are all just like they're just all ideas, right? Like they're all in our imagination, and maybe there's going to be like like it's like, okay, like for instance, my partner and I, the first thing that we did when we first took over the business, like we got excited with like designing and like, oh yeah, this is how we want this office to look and that office to look. And then after some time, we're like, what are we doing? Like, there's all of this fire right here that we need to put out, but we're like, and so I think that, when you're starting a business, when you are, wanting to become a leader, like you kind of can't give up because things will get difficult, and it is going to ask you to put in so much effort, and you are going to try and do certain things. And then sometimes like things are going to happen that are going to take you backwards. And so it's going to feel like, oh my God, like what did I do all of that for? Because I'm like not even back to square one. I'm like back to zero. And so being able to know how to emotionally overcome those things, deal with disappointment, deal with frustration, and still find, a way to continue to push forward, tolerate, tolerate the discomfort. All of that is so important. Because I think a lot of people, when they see a business, like they don't see everything that's under it, right? So even with me right now, I could think about, all these businesses I was talking about before, that, these other group practices that are doing very, very well, but I don't know what kinds of struggles that, they're like fires that they're putting out on a daily basis. And so it's not easy, but I think that if you can learn how to develop more of like a growth mindset where you see challenges and obstacles as opportunities, you can't fail. I won't tell you will succeed, but you can't fail, right? Because you just keep going, and that's it. And you just find ways to overcome certain obstacles. So for me, I think that, succeeding is, I guess, like not letting yourself fail. So yeah, my thing would be, just keep pushing forward, even if things get difficult. And this doesn't mean to never pivot if you need to, but yeah, like I truly, what's helped me, not even just in business, but in my life, is just being able to see obstacles as opportunities to grow.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you just said, you can't fail. I won't tell you you'll succeed, but you can't fail. You just have to keep going, because it's part of the process. I guess as a follow-up, can you speak to like, really what I'm hearing you talk about is a lot of like emotional regulation, distress tolerance, nervous system regulation, because this is really hard work, right? And like, it's very, like a lot gets very uncomfortable very quickly, or for sustained periods of time, because there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress, there's decisions, there's people who won't like you, will be mad at you. You got all kinds, there's just so much that you're managing as a leader, and it requires a lot of self-regulation or burnout. I mean, I think all of it happens, right? So are there any ways that you have found are helpful for you to manage like really the weight of all of this and the discomfort and the stress?
Yes, you have to set aside time to think. I think that, looking back, I kid you not, a year and a half ago, Sharissa and I were this close to closing down the business because we were so overwhelmed. Like, we were in debt. We, our numbers were just like, no matter how much budgeting we were doing, like, it just didn't seem like we could ever catch up. And, and so I think that, like, we just, what we needed to do was we just kind of needed to really like sit down and think like, what can we do? Like, what are some things that we can do? Because when you are overwhelmed, oftentimes you do kind of want to just like throw in the towel. And so I think that what that led us to do was it led us to kind of like open certain doors that we might not have wanted to open. So for instance, like, we had kind of thrown around this idea of taking out a business loan, because again, like we came into this business not having to take out an actual, loan. Yes, we did have a loan from Ken, but we realized that it's like, okay, are we ready to throw in the towel, or do we need to do something drastic? And as scary as that risk was, like we realized now we had to take that risk in order to do the things that we needed to do. So I think that, if we continue to freak out and panic about the situation, we probably would have just thrown in the towel. But, whenever difficult things come up, those are the times where, personally for me, I'll take the time to think about it. And then oftentimes my solution is go talk to them. So I do the same thing with my husband too, right? In our marriage, like, whenever I'm frustrated at something, I need to take that time to myself. It's like, okay, you got to be curious. You got to, hear what he has to say about the situation, because you don't know everything. So I, same way when, whenever difficult times come up, like being able to regulate those emotions, not act on emotions. And then later on, let's have a talk together and figure this out. And then, oftentimes you would be surprised at the kinds of solutions you're able to come up with in a calm nervous system.
Totally. Yeah, I appreciate that so much. The set aside time to think rather than just react from that place of overwhelm or emotionality or whatever it is. Set aside the time to think and ask yourself, what can I do? What are my options here? Because it is amazing the solutions that your brain will get to work on if you ask it those questions, but you have to give yourself that space, right?
Sure. I'm a true believer that when you come across the right solution, like you'll know it, like you actually feel it. You might not need to be able to like identify exactly why it feels like the right solution, but oftentimes like, through collaborating with people and compromising, when something feels right and feels fair, it feels like, it makes sense, like you kind of know it. And we can't do that unless, we are in a calm space. So.
Oh, that's so true. Thank you for saying that. Yes. I love it. Okay. What else do you want our listeners to know? Tell us about where they can find you, your book, anything else that's important to know about you.
So if you're interested in, getting to know, my own private practice, you can find me on www.drbetsychung.com, or you can read my relationship related posts on Instagram, Love Always Dr. Betsy. And my group practice is Flow Wellness Hub. And on there, you'll actually be able to find like a space where, you'll see, me and Sharissa, and you'll hear about our story and learn about the previous owners and how we came to pick, I guess, like taking over the business. That's where you'll find.
Thank you. I did spend some time on your website. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. It took us so long to work with our web developer to come up with like the website and our brand, and we are happy with it.
It's so gorgeous. And I just love that we met on Instagram as we were building like the first iterations of our business. And I've always loved following you on Instagram. So just like, it's such a crazy world, but I'm so happy that you're here and you've, maintained this relationship with me through ups and downs and having a baby and the pandemic. And like, I went dark for a while because I had so much going on. But thank you.
What I appreciate too, though, is that like, I kind of consider us like almost like the OGs, right? Like we kind of were doing this whole Instagram thing before it really, really exploded. And so I think it's been nice because like you and I, we both kind of, lost touch for some time, and now we've reconnected, and it's so nice to be able to do that.
Totally. I love that you said we're the OGs. We were like the first wave of Instagram therapists.
I think so, yes. Not to toot our horn, but I think we were.
Yeah, but we were. All right. Well, is there anything else? And otherwise we can totally wrap up and I'll just be in touch with you.
Yes, I would love to continue our relationship, but that's all for now.
Yeah. Okay. All right.